Your podcast is a powerful tool that serves your audience and your business. But how do you manage it all, bring in new listeners, and convert those listeners into customers? That's what this show is all about. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators. I'm Sarah Whitaker, classroom teacher turned podcast manager, and I'm here to help you get the most out of your show, all while making an impact on other educators. Hey there, and welcome back to Podcasting for Educators. I just got back from a really fun trip in Nashville, Tennessee. I absolutely love live music. Anywhere I am where there's music, it is my happy place. And if you've never been to Nashville before, it is just street after street, bar after bar of live music. Everywhere has bands, multiple bands that play throughout the day. Most places are like 3 or 4 different stories, and there's a different band on every level. So lots of live music, lots of bands, and each band does something a little bit different to set themselves apart from all the other bands and musicians that there are around them. I mean, you can walk into a bar, and if you don't like the band, you can literally walk 10 feet away and check out another one. Now, one thing that a lot of them do that is the same is that they cater to their audience. They know that to get tips, they need to play the songs that people want to hear. And these bands are out there living off of tips. I know for me as a listener and lover of music, when we find the right band that has just the right vibe and is playing the songs that we want, take my money. I am going to be tipping you and I will be here all day long. So I want you to think about your business in the same way. I want you to be the band that everyone wants to listen to. You want to create content in a way that sets you apart from the people around you, from your competition. But you also want to create the content that your audience wants and that meets them where they are. So picture your ideal customer or client. If they're in the education space, they are very likely extremely busy. And if we're being honest, everyone is super busy these days, whether they are educators or not. Pretty much goes for everyone. As the saying goes, everybody is the busiest person that they know. And they are probably being sold to 24/7 everywhere they look. So as business owners who want to grow their email list and grow their audience, we want to think, how can we create something that people are going to be willing and wanting to give their email address over for? And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to give you a new and creative way that you can create your next lead magnet so that people are wanting to hand over their email address to you. And this is where the idea of a private podcast comes in. Now, if you don't know what a private podcast is, I did do an episode back. It was episode 16, and it was an interview with Dr. Lindsay Padilla, who is the creator of the platform that I like to use for private podcasting, which is Hello Audio. So go check out that episode too after you're done listening to this one if you want some more information about what exactly a private podcast is. But essentially, a private podcast is a podcast that listeners have to give you something in order to gain access to, right? So like with a public podcast, like a podcast like this, anybody can find it by searching for it in their listening app. You can't do that with a private podcast. A common way for people to gain access to a private podcast is by giving their email address. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. Now, continuing on this theme of kind of defining what things are, if you're not familiar with what a lead magnet is, a lead magnet or an opt-in, in my opinion, those are the same things. People kind of use them interchangeably, but it is something that you create that is free and that offers a lot of value to the people who are downloading it. So often this could be an ebook, it could be a guide of some sort, it could be a list, it could be a video series, something that people have to give you their email address for, and then you would be emailing them whatever it is that you've created for them. So it's a way to build up your email list. Now, why is a private podcast the perfect idea for a lead magnet? Well, because back to that idea of how busy everybody is, if you have information to share, something to teach in your lead magnet, for most people, it would probably be a lot easier to consume that information through audio rather than through something like an ebook or some sort of PDF that's 15 plus pages. In addition, I think another benefit of using a private podcast as a lead magnet is that now people are going to be able to hear your voice. They're going to get to know you a little bit better, and it is going to kind of level up that know, like, and trust faster in a way that a PDF just can't do. Okay, so now let's talk about how you actually pull this off, how you create a private podcast for a lead magnet. So I'm going to kind of go through step by step here, and I will tell you that I have created a little guide for you that goes through this information and gives you a chance or gives you a space to actually plan out your private podcast. So I'll tell you about that at the end of the episode. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you first need to nail down a topic that your audience is really going to love and that solves a pain point for them. It also needs to be something that gives an insane amount of value. You want your people to download your lead magnet or listen to your lead magnet in this case and think, wow, my goodness, I cannot believe I just got this for free. That is a valuable lead magnet. An example of this would be my most popular lead magnet that I have is my podcasting launch guide, where I walk through the steps of launching a podcast. It is a PDF. It's totally free. And I have had many, many people reach out and say that they were able to start their podcast just through this guide. So I know that it is very, very valuable. I also know that it is one of the main drivers for people who have downloaded this guide to then later purchase something from me, whether it's my services or a digital product. Another example of this is I do have a private podcast lead magnet that is totally free, and it's all about podcast guesting. So it walks you through why you should be guesting on podcasts, the steps to take to do so, what podcasters are looking for in guests, and all of that good stuff. So those are kind of two examples. So it solves a problem for people. My launch guide shows people how to launch their podcast, how to get started. My guesting private podcast tells people how to get started with podcast guesting. So any kind of like how-to content like that makes for a great lead magnet. Okay, so you're going to nail down your topic, and then you're going to create a short episode series that delivers this content, just like you would do with any kind of downloadable PDF. You're just going to be putting that content into audio form. Now, there's no right or wrong way to go in terms of how many episodes this should be. If you'd like a number, because you need that like validation, my recommendation would be to create like anywhere from 3 to 5 episodes. I think 3 episodes is a great kind of sweet spot. And they can be short episodes. My private podcast that I have was 3 episodes. And I think all of the episodes were under 20 minutes. And then this is really important. Ideally, how you want to set this up is that this should funnel people into some sort of paid offer so that they're going to go from this free lead magnet into learning about a paid offer that you have, whether it's a digital resource, your monthly membership, or an online course. So that when you're creating these episodes, when you're recording your episodes for your private podcast, you should be giving a call to action in every episode that leads people to this paid offer. So if you are going to do a 3-episode series, you do not, I repeat, you do not need to wait until that 3rd episode to talk about your paid offer. You can talk about it from the very first episode. In fact, you can talk about it in the first few minutes of that first episode if you want to. Because remember, this is not going to be fluffy content that you're giving in this lead magnet. It is going to offer value. So you have every right to be telling people about this paid offer. So I'll give you an example of this. Back to that example of my guesting private podcast. That's a free lead magnet that I have, and that funnels into my Guesting for Educators mini course that dives way deeper into the topics that I cover on the private podcast, and it gives things like templates and all of that. So on my private podcast, I am sharing that if they want kind of a done for you and they want things like email templates and all of that, then they can go check out my course. And I say that from the first episode. All right, so you've nailed down your topic. You have created a 3 to 5 episode series. Now you're going to use a platform like Hello Audio. That is my platform of choice, and I'll put a link for that in my show notes that you can find at podcastingforeducators.com/episode 54. It is very easy to use. It is very easy to set up. And once you set up your account, it's step by step. You'll be able to understand how to get this set up. They also have fantastic customer support and a great Facebook group that you can go to with any of your questions. But this is where you're going to upload and schedule those episodes. And then I'm going to tell you the most simple way to go from here. And that is to use something called a universal link that is on Hello Audio. The universal link is a link that people can click to get access to your podcast. And I'm going to circle back to that link in just a minute. But on Hello Audio, they do have different plans. I think they have 3 different tiers of monthly pricing. The first being, I want to say it's around like $15 or $17 a month. So it's definitely affordable. And the higher plans are going to let you do more things. Like it's going to let you drip out your content, and it's going to let you set expiration dates. So maybe if somebody signs up for your lead magnet, they are only going to have access to it for 5 days or whatever you want to set it as. Okay, so you'll get set up on a platform like Hello Audio, and then you're going to create a landing page that gives a description of this private podcast, and this is where you will collect the email address. Now, in order to set up this landing page and to collect people's email addresses, you need an email provider like Flowdesk or ConvertKit or MailChimp or MailerLite. There's a bunch of them out there. My top 2 recommendations would be ConvertKit or Flowdesk. So you would have a link that you're maybe sharing on Instagram. That link would take people to this landing page where they'll see a description of the private podcast. Make sure that you highlight that it is free. People might think that if they're signing up for this, they have to pay for it. And then the person will put their name and their email address in. Step number 5 is that you're going to set up an email sequence in your email provider. So this email sequence would be a series of emails that anybody gets who has put their email address on that landing page and entered into this sequence and is asking for access to the private podcast. Again, there's no right or wrong number of emails. If you're going to do a 3-episode series, I'd say 3 to 5 emails is probably good. An example of this could be maybe in email 1, you are going to welcome the listener to the private podcast, and you're going to give that universal link from Hello Audio in this email. And when they click it, they'll be able to subscribe to that podcast, and they can choose which platform they want to listen on. Then maybe your second email in that sequence is going to be some sort of check-in email to see how it's going. Ask them, hey, have you started listening yet? Did you finish? Do you have any questions? Things like that. Then in the third email, that's when you could start talking about the paid offer that you are now funneling these people into and that you're trying to drive traffic to. Now, a little note here, in your email provider, you can set up tags. So you'll want to make sure that you set up a tag or an automation that will take anybody who does join that paid offer that you're driving them to. It takes them out of the private podcast sequence so that they aren't continuing to be sold something that they've already purchased or joined. Okay, so let's review the steps that we've covered so far. Number 1, nail down a topic that your audience will love and that solves a pain point for them. Number 2, create your 3 to 5 episode series. Number 3, use a platform like Hello Audio to upload and schedule your episodes. Number 4, create a landing page where people can give their email address. Number 5, set up an email sequence in your email provider that will deliver the podcast link to them. Now, the last step of this process, you might be able to guess, but that is to promote. Once you've got this thing created, you need to be talking about it. So if you have a public podcast, talk about it on your public podcast. If you have Instagram or a Facebook group, you are talking about it and promoting it just like you would any kind of paid offer. Like I said, I've created a planning guide for you that's going to help walk you through this process and allow you to plan your private podcast. And you can get that at podcastingforeducators.com/private pod plan. That's podcastingforeducators.com/private pod plan. If you do try this out, if you create a private podcast as your next lead magnet, please let me know and tell me all about it and how it goes for you. I do want to let you know that I am going to be going back to one episode a week starting next week because I am taking some unplugged time off in August. And so I'll be back here with a new episode every Wednesday. See you here next time. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. To keep this conversation going, connect with me on Instagram at Podcasting for Educators. I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about podcasting. If you're looking for support in launching, managing, or growing your podcast, check out my online course, the Podcasting for Educators Prep School, at podcastingforeducators.com/prep school. I'll see you here next time.